This is the moment that a volcano erupts underneath the sea. Although relatively little is known about them, it's believed there are over 1 million submarine volcanoes, largely located along the mid-Atlantic ridge. A spectacular sight from above the water, and here's a rare glimpse of an eruption beneath the waves. These volcanoes are responsible for producing 75% of the Earth's magma. Underwater volcanoes are understood to work like their counterparts on dry land. They form towering mountains submerged well below sea level. Some reported to rise as much as 10,000 feet above the seabed. While it's relatively rare to see, these eruptions can also create new islands above the water. On November 14, 1963, a trawler sailing just south of Iceland noticed a plume of smoke billowing from the sea. Thinking it was a fire on board another ship, they travelled towards what was, in fact, an underwater volcano erupting, and witnessed the birth of a new island. It was named Surtsey, after fire giants of Norse mythology.
In 1963, no close approach to the crater seemed possible. It belched lava at the rate of 500,000 tons an hour. Ships and planes were warned to give it a wide berth. Volcanic islands like it have been thrown up before in recent times, but not for 1,000 years has one of this magnitude survived. The lava which once spilt over the yellow rim still bubbles angrily. The liquid lake is 300 feet below now, but jets of bright red lava still spurt upwards, and the fumes are intense. The mountains thrown up from the sea less than a year and a half ago look as though they've weathered the passage of centuries. But the dust piled up round the plain wheels in our absence showed how swiftly the pattern of nature is still changing here.
Today, the island of Surtsey is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the only people allowed to set foot on it are the scientists studying the ecosystem and geology of this unspoiled isle. It's thought that Iceland itself was created in this way by underwater volcanoes millions of years ago. So while it may be rare to see one erupt, these submarine volcanoes have a big part to play in shaping the world above water.
इंडिया की सबसे ऊंची एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल ऑब्जर्वेटरी जो लद्दाख के हानले में बनी है, क्योंकि पूरे इंडिया में हानले से बेहतर कोई और जगह नहीं है गैलेक्सी देखने के लिए। इसलिए ये पूरा एरिया आता है इंडिया के फर्स्ट डार्क स्काई रिजर्व में, जिसमें कई सारे टेलीस्कोप्स लगे हैं, पर इनमें सबसे ज़्यादा हाइट पर लगा है ये हिमालयन चंद्रा टेलीस्कोप।
ये वाला टेलीस्कोप कंट्रोल हो रहा है 3000 किलोमीटर दूर बेंगलोर से। सारा डाटा इसरो में जाता है और इसरो इस डाटा पे रिसर्च करते हैं।
और सबसे अच्छी बात यह है कि इस टेलीस्कोप को अंदर से भी देख सकते हैं।
ओह वाह, कितना बड़ा, मतलब इस एरिया में आके लग रहा है ऐसा कि स्पेस स्टेशन में आ गया हो जैसे मैं।
पर इस जगह की असली खूबसूरती तो रात में पता चलती है जब मिल्की वे दिखता है।
अभी इतना अच्छा मिल्की वे दिख रहा है ना मुझे यहाँ से, क्योंकि यहाँ पे जहाँ पे अभी मैं हूँ वो कम्प्लीटली अंधेरे में है जगह।
On July 25, 1946, the first underwater nuclear test, codenamed Baker, was conducted by the United States at Bikini Atoll as part of Operation Crossroads to study the effects of nuclear weapons on Navy systems. Some 70 ships were anchored at Bikini Lagoon for this test. A Mark IIIA atomic bomb with a yield of 23 kilotons was detonated at a depth of 27 meters, halfway to the bottom. 7 target ships were sunk, while 8 others were seriously damaged. The shot resulted in extensive contamination of the ships and the target area. On September 21, 1955, Novaya Zemlya, an archipelago in the Arctic Ocean, saw the first Soviet underwater nuclear test, which was conducted in a bay named Chornaya Guba to study the effects of nuclear weapons on warships, materiel, and waterfront structures. The test device was a 533mm T-5 torpedo tipped by an RDS-9 nuclear warhead. The torpedo detonated at a depth of 12 meters, 43 meters from the bottom. The yield was 3.5 kilotons. 11 target warships, including destroyers and submarines, were anchored at ranges from 300 to 3,000 meters from surface zero. As a result, one of the destroyers was sunk, one of the submarines was critically damaged, and other target ships received minor damages. On May 16, 1958, an underwater nuclear test codenamed Wahoo was conducted by the United States in the open ocean outside of Eniwetok Atoll as part of Operation Hardtack. A Mark 7 atomic bomb with a yield of 9 kilotons was detonated at a depth of 150 meters, 825 meters to the bottom. Seven target ships, which were anchored in a test area at ranges from 700 to 5,000 meters from surface zero, received minor damages.
Sedan, a 100-kiloton nuclear cratering detonation, recently executed as part of the Atomic Energy Commission's Plowshare program. Sedan was detonated at 10 a.m., July 6, 1962. This is a view taken from the top of a 1,500-foot tower, located 6 miles from ground zero. These sequences are being shown at about 1/3 normal speed. The base surge, seen forming here, continued to grow until it covered an area about 5 miles in diameter. The main cloud rose to a height of 12,000 feet above the desert floor. This close-up view was taken from a ground station 3 miles from ground zero. The dome rose to a height of 290 feet before it vented at 3 seconds. This long view gives a better picture of the mass of material moved by the explosion and the early stages of cloud formation. A very large fraction of the radioactivity that escaped from Sedan was mixed with the fallback in the crater area. Thus, the cloud carried only a small fraction of the radioactivity.
Since 1945, 125,000 nuclear warheads have been built. What was the biggest one? On October 30th, 1961, in the most dangerous period of the Cold War, the Soviet Union detonated the Tsar bomb. The limits of explosive power were pushed farther than they have ever gone and will probably ever go again. It was packed with the equivalent of 58 million tons of TNT, or all of the explosives used in World War II combined times 10. This was the most powerful device that humankind has ever created. The resulting mushroom cloud was 40 miles high. The blast wave was still big enough to be measured on its third lap around the world. The flash of the explosion was seen 620 miles away. A village 34 miles away was leveled. Buildings 100 miles away were damaged, and the heat from the explosion would have caused third-degree burns to anyone 62 miles away.
तेरी मिट्टी में मिल जावा गुल बन के मैं खिल जावा इतनी सी है दिल की आरज़ू तेरी नदियों में बह जावा तेरी फसलों में लहरावा इतनी सी
Romanis, can you please, because something very Indian connection to it.
Right, the Romanis are also known as the Gypsies. Who are the Romani people? So about 1,000 years ago, the Turkic invasions of India began. Now, these mountains are now called the Hindu Kush Mountains. It means the killer of Hindus. The reason is that these Turks, they used to take tens of thousands of Indian slaves out of India into Central Asia through the Hindu Kush. And that mountain range is so called that incredible numbers of Indians, Hindus, died there. That's why it's called the Hindu Kush. They all have Indian matrilineal lineages, not patrilineal lineages. eventually what happened is that they realized that they took too many Indians there, and they did not need so many Indians. And most likely they did not want to slaughter them all on their territory. So what they did is that they set them free. That happened about 1,000 years ago. And ever since then, these people who are called the Romani, they have been wandering around Europe, and they have been subjected to all kinds of horrific atrocities and racism, which happens even today. So Romani people in Europe are Indian origin people. Most of them look like us.